The neon lights of Calith Prime Station flickered in endless patterns across the metal walls. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds moved through the corridors. But most came here for one reason. This was where contracts were made, where credits changed hands, and where violence became business. Ravtol clicked his mandibles together as he looked at the screen in front of him. His 6 eyes scanned the message 3 times. Commander Thale was offering 50 million credits. That was enough money to buy a small moon or fund a private army for years. The insectoid broker leaned back in his chair, his chitinous body making soft scraping sounds against the metal. The contract was simple on the surface. Eliminate a human tactical unit, 7 members. Their leader was someone named Kyung-Soo. Ravtol pulled up the attached files. Images appeared showing a human male in his 30s, lean build, dark hair, eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. The other team members looked similarly unremarkable. Humans always looked so soft to Ravtol, with their smooth skin and small frames. But 50 million credits meant something was wrong with this picture. Ravtol had been in the mercenary business for 23 cycles. He knew when a client was desperate, and Commander Thale reeked of desperation even through a text message. The attached note explained that this human unit had destroyed Thale's weapons facility on Arcturus VII, killed 47 of his security personnel, and escaped without a single casualty on their side. The broker began composing messages to his regular contractors. Within an hour, responses flooded his communication system. The Crimson Talons were interested. The Shadow Reapers wanted more details. The Void Hunters asked about payment terms. Everyone wanted a piece of 50 million credits. Meanwhile, 3 sectors away, Kyung-Soo stood in the cargo bay of their ship, the Silent Runner. The vessel was old, patched together with parts from a dozen different manufacturers, but it flew, and that was enough. He watched as Jae-min loaded ammunition crates onto the storage racks. Jae-min was built like a block of stone, all muscle and focused energy. He had been with Kyung-Soo since their days in the Korean military. Back on Earth. That felt like a lifetime ago now, though it had only been 7 years since humanity had made contact with the wider galaxy. "We need more plasma charges," Jae-min said, not looking up from his work. "The last mission burned through our supply faster than expected." Kyung-Soo nodded. "Add it to the list." "Hana, how are the medical supplies?" A woman emerged from behind a stack of containers. Hana was smaller than both men, but she moved with a precision that spoke of years of training. Her fingers were always steady, whether she was treating a wound or slipping past a security system. She carried a datapad and frowned at the screen. "We're low on synthetic blood and tissue repair gel. If we take another contract like the last one, we won't have enough for a serious injury." Her voice was calm, matter of fact. This was just logistics to her, counting supplies like any other quartermaster. The rest of the team was scattered through the ship. Minho was in the cockpit running system diagnostics. Heejin was in the communications room monitoring local traffic. Sungho and Youngmi were off-ship, gathering supplies and information from the station markets. None of them knew that their names and faces were being distributed to mercenary groups across 3 sectors. None of them knew that professional killers were studying their movements, analyzing their patterns, calculating approach vectors, and kill zones. Back on Calith Prime, Ravtol sent out the complete dossiers. The files were extensive. Commander Thale had been thorough, probably spending a fortune on intelligence gathering. There were service records, mission reports, tactical analyses. There was even combat footage from the Arcturus VII operation. Ravtol watched the footage himself before sending it out. He wanted to understand what his contractors would be facing. The video quality was poor, taken from security cameras that were half destroyed in the fighting. But what he saw made his antennae twitch with unease. The humans moved through the facility like water flowing downhill, taking the path of least resistance but impossible to stop. They communicated with hand signals and brief words, coordinating without seeming to think about it. When security forces tried to pin them down, the humans simply changed their approach, adapted, found another route. What struck Ravtol most was their faces. They weren't angry or excited. They looked focused, professional, almost bored, like they had done this 1,000 times before. One scene showed Kyung-soo taking cover behind a barrier, while energy weapons fire tore chunks out of the wall above his head. He glanced at his watch, said something into his communicator, then leaned out and fired 3 precise shots. 3 security guards dropped. He checked his watch again and moved forward. They were timing their assault. Operating on a schedule. Treating a combat operation like a business meeting that needed to end on time. The footage ended with the facility's main reactor going critical. The last image was the human team boarding their ship, walking up the ramp without hurrying, without looking back at the explosion blooming behind them. Ravtol sent the files and sat back in his chair. 50 million credits would bring in every mercenary group within 10 sectors. This human unit, this Kyung-soo and his team, they had no idea what was coming for them. The broker felt something that might have been pity if his species was capable of such emotions. His computer chimed with incoming messages. The responses were even faster than he expected. 23 mercenary groups confirmed their interest within the first hour. 41 groups within 3 hours. By the end of the day, over 60 professional military contractors had requested the full mission briefing. Ravtol began scheduling meetings. This was going to be profitable, even with just his broker fees. He allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, his mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his people. He had no idea that within a week, not a single one of those mercenary groups would still be interested in the contract. Drak had killed beings from 47 different species over his 30-year career. He had led the Crimson Talons through impossible missions and brought his crews home alive, more often than not. He was expensive, efficient, and professional. When Ravtol sent him the contract details, his first instinct was to accept immediately. 50 million credits split among his crew of 12 would set them all up for comfortable retirement. The targets were just 7 humans, and humans were still new to the galaxy. How dangerous could they be? But Drak had not survived 3 decades in the mercenary business by being careless. He called his team together in their operations room on Calith Prime's lower decks. The Crimson Talons gathered around the holographic display table, their various species creating a strange mix of scales, fur, and synthetic combat enhancements. "Before we take this contract, we research," Drak announced. His voice was a low rumble, his species having evolved from pack hunters on a cold world. "I want everything on humans. Military history, combat doctrine, physical capabilities, everything." His second in command, a being named Rax, pulled up files on the display. They have been involved in 3 major conflicts and dozens of minor engagements. Their military record is unusual. The team spent the next 2 days gathering information. What they found made Drak increasingly uncomfortable. Humans came from a planet they called Earth, a world that by galactic standards was classified as a death world. High gravity, extreme weather, and an evolutionary path that had produced pursuit predators. Most species in the galaxy had evolved as prey animals or ambush hunters. Humans had evolved to chase their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Rax found video footage from something called the Navy SEALs training program. The team watched in silence as human recruits were subjected to a week of continuous physical stress with almost no sleep. The instructors pushed them into freezing water, made them carry heavy boats on their heads for hours, and screamed at them constantly. Many quit, but those who completed the training had a look in their eyes that Drak recognized. They had been broken down and rebuilt into something harder. "This is just their training?" one of his crew members asked. "They do this to their own people?" Drak found more footage. British SAS selection courses, where candidates carried heavy packs across mountains for days. Russian Spetsnaz programs that included hand-to-hand combat training that looked more like gladiatorial combat. And Korean Special Forces, the 707th Special Mission Group, training in mountains during winter, operating for 20 hours straight on minimal food and water. "They seem to enjoy suffering," Rax observed. Or at least, they use it to make themselves stronger. The team pulled up the combat footage from Arcturus VII again, watching it frame by frame. Minho, the youngest member of Kyungsu's unit, was visible in several shots. In one sequence, he was hacking into a security terminal, while plasma fire sparked off the wall inches from his head. He did not flinch. His fingers never stopped moving across the holographic interface. When the door opened, he stood, drew his weapon, and moved forward in one smooth motion. "How old is this one?" Drock asked. 24 human years, Rax replied. "He is considered very young for this type of unit." Another video showed Jaemin during a different operation. He took a hit to his shoulder that should have disabled his arm. The impact spun him around and knocked him down. Most beings would have retreated to receive medical attention. Jaemin rolled, switched his weapon to his other hand, and kept fighting. Later analysis showed he had fought for another 17 minutes with a fractured collarbone before the mission ended. Drock began searching for more information on human military history. He found records of something called World War II, where human nations had fought each other in a conflict that killed over 60 million of their own species. He read about a siege called Stalingrad, where humans fought for every building, every street, sometimes every room, for months. He found accounts of soldiers fighting with frostbites so severe they could barely hold their weapons. "They fight each other like this?" Rax asked, reading over his shoulder. "Their own species? Apparently." Drock felt cold despite the heated room. And now, they are bringing these tactics into the galaxy. He contacted Instructor Vec, a military professor at the Academy on Terminus Station. Vec had studied the First Contact War, the brief conflict when humans first encountered galactic civilization. It had been a misunderstanding, a border dispute that escalated, but it had taught the galaxy something important about humans. "They adapt," Vec explained over the communication link. His face on the screen showed the wrinkled features of his long-lived species. "We hit their colony on Proxima. They lost 60% of their population in the first strike. Standard doctrine says they should have surrendered. Instead, they analyzed our tactics, modified their defenses, and held the line for 3 months until reinforcements arrived." "What makes them so resilient?" Drock asked. "Evolution," Vec said simply. "Most species in the galaxy evolved in relatively stable environments. Humans evolved in chaos. Ice ages, droughts, predators, diseases. Their world tried to kill them for millions of years, so they evolved to be almost impossible to kill. High pain tolerance, rapid healing, and most importantly, psychological resilience. They simply do not give up." Drock thanked the instructor and ended the call. He looked at his team gathered around the table. They had been watching and listening to everything. "I propose we attempt surveillance first," Drock said. "We track this human unit, observe their patterns, find weaknesses." The team agreed. 3 of his crew took a small ship and followed the silent runner for 2 days. On the 3rd day, they maintained a long-distance scan, while the human ship docked at a supply station. Hana spotted them within an hour. Drock watched through his crew's camera feeds as the human woman appeared on their ship's external sensors. She was on the hull of the supply station, somehow having crossed 300 meters of open space without being detected. She placed something on their hull, a small device that began broadcasting their exact position. Then she looked directly at the camera and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. His crew barely escaped, jumping to hyperspace the moment their engines could manage it. When they returned to Calith Prime, they looked shaken. These were hardened mercenaries, beings who had seen combat across a dozen worlds, and they looked frightened. "She knew we were there the whole time," one of them reported. "She was playing with us, like a cat with prey." Drock made his decision. He sent a message to Ravtol, withdrawing from the contract. The payment, even 50 million credits, was not worth fighting beings who treated danger like a game. Within hours, he learned that 3 other mercenary groups had made similar attempts at surveillance. All 3 had withdrawn from the contract. Word was beginning to spread through the mercenary networks. Humans were different. Humans were dangerous. And perhaps most importantly, humans were not worth the risk. The message from Drock's Crimson Talons appeared on mercenary boards across 3 sectors. It was simple and direct. Contract declined. Risk assessment unfavorable. Within an hour, 5 more groups posted similar messages. By the end of the day, 12 of the original 63 interested parties had withdrawn. Rav Tol stared at his screens in confusion. This had never happened before. Mercenaries did not turn down 50 million credits because of unfavorable risk assessment. They turned down contracts because the pay was too low, or the client was untrustworthy. They did not run from 7 targets, no matter how skilled those targets might be. He sent private messages to Drock and the other crew leaders who had withdrawn. Most did not respond. Drock sent back a single line: "Watch the humans in actual combat. Then, you will understand." The broker began searching for more footage. What he found in the Galactic military archives made him understand why experienced mercenaries were walking away from the biggest payday of the decade. There was footage from a border dispute on Kepler Station. A human security team of 4 had faced off against 23 raiders. The raiders had better weapons, better armor, and more numbers. The engagement lasted 11 minutes. All 23 raiders were dead or incapacitated. All 4 humans walked away with minor injuries. The security footage showed humans moving in patterns that seemed almost choreographed, each one covering the others, never making the same move twice. Another video showed a human merchant ship defending against pirates. The ship had been boarded. Pirates had controlled the cargo bay and were moving toward the bridge. The 3-person human crew had retreated to the engine room and held that position for 6 hours. 6 hours of continuous combat in a space barely large enough for 10 people. When rescue arrived, the pirates had given up trying to dig them out. 2 humans were wounded. Both had continued fighting. But what really made Rav Tol's antennae twitch was a video from a mining colony. A human geological survey team had been caught in a tunnel collapse. They were trapped underground with limited oxygen for 48 hours. The rescue team expected to find corpses. Instead, they found the humans had rationed their air, kept themselves calm through meditation techniques, and even managed to dig themselves closer to the surface to help the rescue effort. The leader of that survey team was named Sung Ho. Rav Tol cross-referenced the name. Sung Ho was Kyung-Soo's friend from their military days on Earth. He had recently been in contact with Kyung-Soo's team, which meant the targets probably knew about the bounty by now. That thought made Rav Tol feel something close to fear. A meeting was called. The Council of Captains, 5 of the most prominent mercenary leaders in the sector, gathered in a secure conference room on Calith Prime. Rav Tol attended as the broker who had posted the contract. The council included representatives from 5 major mercenary companies. They gathered around a table, their various forms of biology creating a strange assembly. Drock was there, representing independent contractors. There was Captain Shale, from the Void Hunters, her crystalline body reflecting the room's lights. Commander Breck, of the Shadow Reapers, attended remotely via hologram. 2 others, veteran leaders with decades of experience, completed the council. "We are here to discuss the human problem," Captain Shale began. Her voice had a musical quality, her species communicating through harmonic vibrations. "Multiple crews have withdrawn from a highly profitable contract. This is unprecedented. We need to understand why." Drock stood and activated the holographic display. For the next hour, the council watched footage of humans, in combat, in training, and in crisis situations. Drock provided analysis alongside each video. He explained about persistence hunting, about pain tolerance, about the human ability to function at high levels for extended periods without rest. "They call it adrenaline," Drock explained. "A chemical their bodies produce in stress situations. It makes them faster, stronger, and almost immune to shock and pain for short periods. But unlike most species, humans can consciously trigger this response and function under its effects without losing rational thought. He showed footage of human military training, images of soldiers carrying wounded teammates for miles, video of humans swimming in freezing water, while instructors fired weapons over their heads, records of training exercises where human soldiers operated for 72 hours straight with less than 4 hours of total sleep. They trained for conditions worse than any actual mission, Drock said. So, when the mission goes wrong, they are still operating within their training parameters. Commander Breck's hologram flickered. But they are still just 7 individuals. Numbers should mean something. Drock pulled up a historical file. The Battle of Thermopylae. 300 humans held a narrow pass against an army of hundreds of thousands for 3 days. They knew they would die. They stayed, anyway. This is a historical event that human military leaders still study and teach. That was thousands of years ago, Captain Shale objected. Surely they have changed. Drock showed recent footage. A human unit in the First Contact War had been cut off from their main force. 15 humans versus a regiment of 300. They were given a chance to surrender. They declined. They held their position for 2 days, inflicting casualties at a ratio of 17-1 before reinforcements arrived. When asked why they did not retreat, their commander said, "We were ordered to hold this position. No one ordered us to stop." The room fell silent. They follow orders even when it means their death. One of the council members said slowly, "That is not rationality. That is fanaticism." "No," Drock corrected. "That is discipline. They trust their commanders. They trust each other, and that trust makes them more dangerous than any weapon." He pulled up the dossier on Kyung-Soo's team again. These 7 have worked together for years. Haejin monitors communications and can speak 12 languages. Young-Mi processes intelligence faster than most military computers. Minho can hack any system we use. Hana is trained in both medicine and assassination. Jae-Min is a weapons expert who has survived injuries that would kill most species. And Kyung-Soo leads them. He thinks 3 moves ahead of any opponent. Drock let that information settle over the council. We would not be fighting 7 individuals. We would be fighting a single organism with 7 parts, each part knowing exactly what the other parts will do. Captain Shale's crystalline body seemed to dim slightly. And they know about the bounty now? Sung Ho warned them 5 days ago, Ravtol confirmed. They are prepared. The council debated for another hour. Stories circulated. One captain mentioned a human crew that had repaired their ship's engines while under fire, refusing to abandon their vessel even when rescue was available. Another told of a human security officer who had fought off attackers with a broken leg, crawling when he could no longer stand. By the end of the meeting, the decision was clear. Of the 5 council members, 4 voted to formally discourage their member companies from accepting the contract. The 5th abstained. 27 mercenary companies followed their guidance and withdrew. Only 2 companies remained interested in the bounty. Both were smaller operations, crews desperate enough or foolish enough to ignore the warnings. Ravtol sent them the full briefing packages, but he knew they would not last long. Word spread through the mercenary networks. Experienced crews began sharing information about humans, warning younger mercenaries. On ships and stations across the sector, the message was the same. Humans do not quit. Humans do not break. Humans just keep coming. Ravtol made a decision that surprised even himself. He doubled the bounty. 100 million credits. It was an absurd amount of money. Enough to buy a fleet of ships, or fund a small nation. Commander Thale had agreed to the increase without hesitation, which told Ravtol that the human unit had hurt Thale worse than the initial reports suggested. The new bounty posting went out across every mercenary board in 5 sectors. Ravtol waited for the responses to flood in. He checked his messages every few minutes. Hours passed. His inbox remained almost empty. 3 inquiries came in, all from crews with such poor reputations that Ravtol would not have recommended them for basic security work. No one wanted the contract. 100 million credits. And no one would take it. The broker had to admit defeat. Somehow, 7 humans had become the most feared targets in the mercenary business. He needed to understand how this had happened so quickly. The answer came from an unexpected source. A galactic news network had arranged an interview with someone named Tae Yang, a retired human military operator who now trained alien military units. The interview was scheduled to discuss human integration into galactic security forces, but it became something else entirely. Ravtol watched the broadcast from his office. Tae Yang appeared on screen, an older human with gray hair and scars visible on his hands. He wore a simple uniform and sat calmly across from the alien interviewer, a being from a species known for their journalistic integrity. "You train alien soldiers in human combat methods," the interviewer began. "Why would alien forces need human training?" Taeyang smiled slightly. "Because human combat methods are different from what most galactic species use. We approach warfare from a different perspective. Can you explain that perspective? Most species in the galaxy evolved as either prey animals or ambush predators. Your tactics reflect that. Quick strikes, efficient kills, minimal risk. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We do not need to be faster or stronger than our prey. We just need to outlast them." The interviewer leaned forward. "There is a story circulating in mercenary networks. A human unit with a bounty that no one will claim. Have you heard of this?" Taeyang nodded. "I have heard. I know the team leader, actually. Kyung-soo was a few years behind me in the program. Why do you think experienced mercenaries are refusing this contract?" "Because they have done their research," Taeyang said simply. "They have looked at human military history and realized that fighting humans is different from fighting most species." "Different how?" Taeyang considered his words carefully. "When you shoot most beings, they go down and stay down. When you shoot a human, their body floods with adrenaline and endorphins. They might not even feel the wound immediately. I have seen humans fight for 10 minutes with injuries that should have killed them in seconds. Their brain just decides that survival is more important than acknowledging pain." The interviewer's alien features showed something like disbelief. "Surely, that is exaggeration. During my service, I watched a teammate take a plasma hit to his abdomen. The wound was fatal. We all knew it. He knew it. He still provided covering fire for our extraction, killed 4 enemy combatants, and walked to the extraction point under his own power. He died in the medical bay 30 minutes later, but he completed his mission first." The studio was silent for a moment. Taeyang continued. "Human special forces train in conditions that most species would consider torture. Korean special forces train in mountains, operating for 20 hours straight in freezing temperatures. Navy SEALs endure a week called Hell Week, where they get maybe 4 hours of total sleep while being subjected to constant physical stress. British SAS selection has candidates carry heavy packs across mountains for days with minimal food. We do this to ourselves on purpose because we know that missions go wrong, and when they do, you need people who have already suffered worse in training." "Is this why mercenaries will not accept the contract?" the interviewer asked. "Partially. But there is another factor." Taeyang leaned forward. "Humans bond through shared suffering. When you go through hell with someone, you trust them with your life. Military units like Kyung-soo's team have been through things together that most beings cannot imagine. They know exactly how each teammate will react in any situation. They communicate without speaking. They coordinate without planning. They are not 7 individuals. They are one weapon with 7 parts." The interview continued, but Ravtol had heard enough. He understood now why his contract had failed. The mercenary community had looked at humans and seen what they really were. Not soft prey animals from a distant world, but apex predators who had turned their own evolution into a weapon. Young Mi, the intelligence analyst on Kyung-soo's team, sat in the communications room of the Silent Runner and watched the same interview. She had been monitoring mercenary communications for days, tracking the contract and the withdrawals. She had compiled a report for Kyung-soo showing exactly how the situation had evolved. "They are talking about us," she said to Haejin, who sat at the adjacent console. "The entire mercenary network is sharing warnings about human combat capabilities." Haejin adjusted her headset, listening to multiple communication channels simultaneously. "I am picking up at least 40 different conversations mentioning our team specifically. They are using us as an example of why not to accept contracts against humans." "Is that good or bad?" Youngmi asked. "Both," Haejin replied. "Good, because we are safe from mercenary attacks. Bad, because we are now famous in ways we did not want to be famous." Youngmi pulled up a particularly interesting communication she had intercepted. It was a message from a veteran mercenary captain to a younger crew considering the bounty. The message was blunt. "Do not take contracts against human special operations units. You think you have advantages. Better weapons. Better armor. More numbers. None of that matters. Humans will adapt to your advantages faster than you can exploit them. They will turn your strengths into weaknesses. They will survive injuries that should kill them. They will fight for days without rest. And most importantly, they will never, ever give up. You might wound them. You might corner them. You might think you have won. And then they will do something you did not expect because they spent the whole fight planning 3 moves ahead while you were just trying to stay alive." Youngmi shared the message with Kyung-soo. He read it in his quarters, then called a team meeting. The 7 of them gathered in the common area. Kyung-soo stood before his team. These people he had fought beside for years. "The bounty is still active," he said, "but it seems no one wants to claim it. We have become the example that scares away other hunters." "Is this because of Hana terrifying those surveillance crews?" Jaemin asked with a slight smile. Hana shrugged. "I just wanted them to know we knew they were there." The smile was improvisation. Minho laughed. "That smile probably saved us from having to fight 40 different mercenary groups." But Kyung-soo was serious. "This is bigger than our team now. We represent something to the galaxy. We represent what humans can do. That is a responsibility." See, the team understood. They were no longer just 7 soldiers trying to survive. They had become a symbol, a warning, a legend in the making. Commander Thale made one final attempt. The bounty increased to 250 million credits. He added personal guarantees, promising payment in advance, offering bonuses for quick completion, even providing detailed intelligence packages that must have cost a fortune to compile. The posting went out across 8 sectors now, reaching the farthest edges of known mercenary networks. The response was silence. Not a single crew expressed interest, not even the desperate ones, the crews running on failing ships and empty accounts. The contract sat on the boards, glowing with its enormous number, and everyone in the mercenary business looked away. Rav Tol received messages, but not the kind he expected. Mercenary crews were contacting him to complain. The contract was making them look bad. Clients were questioning why such a large bounty remained unclaimed. Some crews worried that potential employers would think the entire mercenary profession was weak or cowardly. One message was particularly direct. "Remove this contract. It is humiliating all of us." The broker found himself in an impossible situation. He contacted Commander Thale and explained that the contract was not just failing, it was becoming a liability. Thale, consumed by his desire for revenge, refused to withdraw it. He increased the bounty again, to 300 million credits. That was when something unexpected happened. The Mercenary Guild, a loose organization that set professional standards across the sector, issued a formal statement. It was brief and professional, but its meaning was clear. The Guild advises extreme caution when accepting contracts targeting human special operations personnel. Such contracts carry extraordinary risk and may result in complete crew loss. The Guild will not mediate disputes arising from these contracts. It was the politest way possible of saying, "You are on your own if you are stupid enough to try this." The statement spread through every mercenary network within hours. It became official policy. Human elite forces were now formally recognized as high-risk targets that fell outside normal operational parameters. Ravtol sat in his office and made a decision. He sent a message to the Silent Runner, requesting a private meeting with Kyung-soo. He expected to be ignored or threatened. Instead, he received coordinates for a neutral meeting location and a time. They met on a small commercial station, in a cafe that served beings from a dozen different species. Ravtol arrived first, his insectoid body folding into a chair designed for species with different anatomy. Kyung-soo walked in 10 minutes later, alone and unarmed as far as Ravtol could detect. The human sat down across from him. Up close, Kyung-soo looked ordinary. Average height for a human, lean build, dark hair starting to show gray at the temples, but his eyes were what caught Ravtol's attention. They were calculating, aware, taking in every detail of the cafe, and everyone in it. "You wanted to meet," Kyung-soo said. His voice was calm, neutral. "I wanted to apologize," Ravtol said, "and to withdraw the contract formally." "You can do that? Commander Thale will be angry, but yes, I am the broker. I can refuse to maintain a listing if I believe it damages my professional reputation. This contract is doing exactly that." Kyung-soo nodded slowly. "And you came here to tell me this? In person? Because your people terrify the entire mercenary profession. And I wanted to see for myself if that fear was justified." "And?" Ravtol clicked his mandibles, a gesture of resignation. "You walked in here alone, to meet with someone who has been coordinating attempts to kill you. You show no fear, no anger, just professional courtesy." "Yes, the fear is justified," Kyung-soo almost smiled. "We do not want to be feared. We just want to do our jobs and be left alone." "Then you should not be so good at surviving," Ravtol said. "The galaxy has never seen anything like human special forces. You are changing the nature of military operations just by existing." They talked for another hour. Ravtol asked questions about human military culture, about training, about the bonds between team members. Kyung-soo answered honestly, though he avoided discussing specific tactics or current operations. By the end of the conversation, the broker understood that humans were not monsters or supermen. They were just very, very good at what evolution had designed them to do: survive. The contract was formally withdrawn the next day. Commander Thale threatened legal action, threatened violence, and threatened to ruin Ravtol's reputation. The broker absorbed all of it calmly and pointed out that no one would claim the bounty anyway, so maintaining the listing was pointless. Eventually, Thale gave up. But the story did not end there. It spread. Young mercenaries, the ones fresh out of training and eager for their first big score, started hearing about the human unit that scared away the entire profession. It became a cautionary tale. A story told in training academies and crew briefings. On the Terminus Military Academy, Instructor Vec added a new module to his combat doctrine course. It was titled Human Combat Psychology and Why Numbers Do Not Matter. The first lesson included footage of Kyung-soo's team in action, analyzed frame by frame. Students watched humans adapt to changing situations, coordinate without speaking, and continue fighting through injuries that would incapacitate most species. The final exam question was simple. You are offered a contract to eliminate a human special operations team. The pay is sufficient for retirement. Do you accept? Explain your reasoning. Students who answered yes failed the course. Taeyang's training program expanded. More alien military units wanted to learn human combat methods. He taught them about persistence, about pain management, about the psychological techniques that allowed humans to function in extreme conditions. His students learned to push past their evolutionary limitations, to adapt human survival strategies to their own biology. Some of them succeeded. Most realized that human methods required human psychology, something that could not be easily transferred to species with different evolutionary backgrounds. Meanwhile, the Silent Runner completed its original mission. Kyung-soo's team delivered their cargo, collected their payment, and moved on to the next contract. They operated with increased caution for a few months. But gradually the heightened security became unnecessary. Word had spread too far. Everyone knew who they were now. And everyone knew to leave them alone. Mercenary groups that tracked the Silent Runner did so to avoid it, not to intercept it. When Heijin detected ships on their sensors, she would run their identifications, and almost always find that those ships changed course to give them a wide berth. It was like they carried a bubble of empty space around them wherever they went. Jae-min found the situation amusing. We have become the monster in the dark that other monsters avoid. Is that a good thing? Minho asked. It means we can work without constantly watching our backs, Hana said. I would call that good. Youngmi compiled a final report on the entire situation, documenting how the bounty had evolved from a serious threat into a galactic joke, and finally into a teaching moment for the mercenary profession. She archived it in their mission logs, knowing that someday someone would want to understand how 7 humans had changed the way an entire galaxy thought about military contracts. Sung-ho visited them months later, bringing supplies and news from other human units operating in the sector. He sat with Kyung-soo in the ship's common area, sharing a drink that tasted like home. You are famous now, Sung-ho said. Every human military unit in the galaxy knows your story. You are the team that was too dangerous to kill. Fame was not the goal, Kyung-soo replied. No. But reputation is useful. Other human teams are finding it easier to operate now. Clients trust us more. Enemies think twice before engaging. You scared the mercenary community badly enough that they are leaving all of us alone. Kyung-soo considered that. Perhaps there was value in being the example, the warning, the story that others told. If it made things safer for other humans trying to survive in a galaxy that still did not fully understand them, then maybe the unwanted fame was worth it. On Calith Prime, in training rooms and crew briefings across 100 stations, young mercenaries were learning the most important lesson of their profession. Know when not to fight. Know when the profit is not worth the risk. Know when you are facing something that evolution has designed to survive, no matter what you throw at it. The lesson always included the same ending, delivered by veteran crew leaders who had learned it the hard way. Never accept contracts against human special operations units. They will outlast you, outthink you, and outlive you. And when you think you have won, when you think they are finally defeated, that is when they are most dangerous. Because humans have one ability that no other species can match. They refuse to quit. The galaxy had learned about humans through war, through trade, through cultural exchange. But the mercenary profession had learned the most important truth. Humans were not just another species trying to find their place in the galaxy. They were survivors, adapters, and warriors who brought millions of years of evolution to every fight. And that made them something the galaxy had never encountered before, something to be respected, to be avoided, and never, ever, to be underestimated.